on Sunday night, Monday night, and Tuesday night, just to come and meet people, talk. You got something on your mind, you have questions. We do a little bit of teaching if we get into it. Not necessarily do we do that, but if people ask questions, we will do it. And on Wednesdays at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, USA, we do it through the Noach World Center YouTube channel. We open a Zoom room. You can just come into the Zoom room. And it's also broadcast around the world to all the Noach people across the world through that once a week. So anyway, here we go. Without further ado, we have with us Thomas and Emmanuel, Cole Younger. Welcome, Tony, Blaine, good to see you, and Robin Clark. And I don't know where some of you are. Some of you I do because you're regulars. And Cole Younger, I have to ask you a question. When I saw your name the first time, I was going to ask it. I said, no, I'll wait until we aren't in that particular setting. Is there a family history here?
Yes, my grandfather was the first cousin to Cole Younger.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say, as soon as I saw the name, I said, there had to be a family connection. Yeah, yep. That's interesting. So you must have some interesting family stories somewhere along there.
Oh, I sure do. Yeah.
Yeah. At some point, I'd like to hear one or two, some interesting stuff. That's very interesting. So where do you live?
Seattle, Washington.
Okay. Not in the Wild West, but up north, the Wild North.
Yeah, the Wild North, the Great White North. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's kind of wild up there now in Washington State, from what I understand.
It is. It is. It's pretty crazy right now.
Yeah. Hello, Angelica. Good to see you. Well, let me just bring a quick update on what's happening here in Israel. We don't like to talk a whole lot about the corona stuff because you just get so full of it all day long. But the lockdown's getting locked down even tighter here. You can't have gatherings of more than 2 people unless it's a funeral where you need to have 10 anyway, and it's outdoors. And for the Brit Milah, the circumcision ceremony, you're allowed to do it. And also you have to have 10 people, and also it has to be outside and you have to keep your distances. We've had only 16 deaths so far and about 5,000 people infected. And that's about the update here. Now, my own personal, my wife and I, Shira, about 5 weeks ago, we both had pretty bad colds. We were feeling pretty bad, and we went to the doctor, and he said, "Wow, you guys got pretty bad colds." And he gave us some medicines and all this, and we went through it. But he said, at that time, you guys ought to stick close to home. Just stay home. Don't go out, do anything. Just go out for essential stuff. And this is really, this was before Corona, BC, before Corona. And we've been in the house already 5 weeks. And it's tough. It's not easy. But, and then we just sat down and decided, oh, we're going to have a daily schedule, and we're going to do this, and we're going to do that, we're going to do that. And guess what? It doesn't work. You find out you can get up when you want, and you can eat when you want. We both do a lot of traveling through Zoom rooms. Sundays, I'm pretty busy from morning till night. And Shira has, the women here in Sfat have a women's school where they learn. And they used to get together every Monday, and for most of the day, and have class after class after class. So now they do it through a Zoom room. So that hasn't changed any. And most of the classes that I took also have Zoom rooms now. So it's pretty good. At least we're keeping up on that schedule. And it's really becoming pretty interesting, the whole thing. We're doing a lot of learning, which is great at any age. It's always good to learn something new and move forward. Anyway, that's how it's affected us here in Israel. And Thomas, I saw your post, and they're not closing the grocery stores. Believe me, they're not closing the grocery stores.
They're talking about doing a delivery system.
Well, they talked about it here too, and they found out people would have to wait 10 to 12 days to get their delivery. They said, no, we'll have the grocery stores open. And what they do is,
Oh yeah, that's not. I'm a northern redneck with a shotgun. That ain't gonna work.
yeah, no, it don't work. It don't work over here for us either. So what we
So
do, they open
you were talking about. Oh, go ahead.
they're opening the stores from 7 to 8:30 every morning for people over 60. And you can go to the store and do your shopping and be home. And then at 8:30, everything else starts moving around. So, and the younger people really aren't as great a risk as the older people. I mean, they get it and they get a cold, and it might be a tough cold, but they get it, and then it's gone and it's over with. So, and unfortunately, the incubation period is 2 weeks. And while during that 2 weeks, people are infectious and they don't know it. So they can hurt a lot of people. So, but it's okay. Like during the day, although it's kind of quiet in our neighborhood right now, the kids get out, I guess the parents throw them out of the house at one point to get some peace and quiet in the house. But around 12, 1 o'clock in the afternoon, they go, we have just an open plaza up here in front of the shoals here. And they just go out and play and run around and ride bikes and play a little soccer, and they go home. Night, as soon as it's dark, everybody's inside again. And it's kind of like, I get up and after the meeting here ends at 7, about 7:15, I'll go up to the grocery store if I need anything. Yesterday, I became a prepper yesterday. I did 2 weeks worth of grocery shopping at one time, but you always forget something. So we get out there and you're driving around, there's no other cars on the road, there's no people on the road, everything is just empty and quiet. It's a little eerie, you know. But you know what? The people I'm talking to, my friends here, they're almost getting used to this. They're saying, gee, guess how much money I didn't spend today? Guess, and I feel more relaxed, and I feel not as much pressure to run and be somewhere every 10 minutes, or these tough schedules that I used to keep and stuff like that. So there's an upside to everything. And the schools here are open like Zoom rooms for the kids. So they're really not out of school, but they are. Schools are permanently closed probably till September, but they still learn. I heard in Texas, schools got closed, and they automatically just passed everybody on to the next level and told them to come back in September. So things are kind of, it's changing our lives. And, maybe a good thing. It just may be a good thing. The neatest thing I saw was the NASCAR races. They're virtual. And people have these cages. If you look it up, you can see the equipment they have set up in their garages, or if they have a home big enough in a room in the house. And it's like they're sitting in a cockpit of a NASCAR, and everything's virtual. It's like, you know what it is? It's like what do they call those things? The trainers that they use for flight school and stuff. Simulator. It's like a simulator, and it's really, really cool. And they just did the first Formula race that way. Of course, you have to pay to watch everything, so I can't do it, or I don't do it. But it's really pretty cool. It's changing the face of things. And I had one friend of a friend who's a pretty big gambler. He likes to bet on about anything. He tells me, there's nothing to bet on. Nowhere in the world. There's no sports events. There's nothing I can bet on. And guess what? It's saving him a whole pile of money. But this is a time when you can save money. Just think about what you can save by not doing some of the things we used to do every day. I know when I was much younger and I got into financial problems, and I used to buy a cup of coffee and a donut at Dunkin' Donuts. I was in the States every day on my way somewhere. And when I got into financial problems, I said, let's see, I'm paying $3.50 every morning when I leave the house. Gee, if I don't do that, I save $100 a month. It'll pay a bill. we don't think about the little money we spend that can pay bills and it can help us make our lives better instead of making our bellies bigger. So there's all things to think about. Yeah, you're doing good, Thomas. Thomas lost some weight there. It's looking good, but not because of what's going on. He started that before. So it's pretty darn interesting. And I'd like, if anybody has any interesting, I don't know, good deeds or miracles or something happened in their life or there's something they feel was miraculous, this is the place to share it if you want to do that. You find out like this also, people are good at putting on faces. You know, even if like somebody doesn't have money, they put on a face like they have money and things like that. And I found out, which I really didn't know, a couple of families that we know were not in really good financial shape anyway. And it's given us a chance to help them out during this period. We're getting ready for the festival of Passover. We need the matzah breads. We need wine. We need some foods to put on the table. So we've been talking to these people and helping them. Last time I went grocery shopping, I bought groceries for 2 families, and I bought them some wine and some matzah and things like that, which are just ends up to be big expenses. How can I do this? I'll tell you how. People like you guys help us out pay our bills and stuff, and we take a good portion of that and we spread it around the community because it's always needed. And I'm just going to say, if you may have a neighbor that you know is elderly, but you're not friends with. I mean, you just never talk to them or something. I suggest now's the time to see if they need anything. It's real important. It's real important to help other people right now, to connect with people or reconnect with people. Yeah, schools and families are together. That's just magic. That's unbelievable. Hashem is teaching us something we need to know. We've gone so far out. It makes us think, and that's true. For those of you, just to share this, 3,300 years ago, at this time, coming up in about 10 days, we were told by Moses that God told him we're supposed to go into our houses, close the doors, and sit with our families. Only our family, not to congregate together, but individual families. To go in your house, close your door, and sit there. And that was because what was happening in the plague that was going to overtake the firstborn of all of Egypt. And it was only for the firstborn. It wasn't for everybody else. Anybody else could have been outside if they wanted, but everybody went inside because they were told to, and waited until they were told they could go outside again. And it's just amazing that we're this time of year, the whole world is doing the same exact thing that we had to do 3,300 years ago to avoid the angel of death. You know, the Torah, it's not a history book. It's an explanation of what God has done in the world. And if you learn it real good, you find out something really interesting about it. If you look at it properly, time is like, here, this is Slinky. Everybody knows what a Slinky is. If you squeeze it together and you look at it from the circular part here, if you were to take and divide this up into 365 days, every time you squeeze it together, the days line up from today to the beginning of mankind. When you let it down, you find out time doesn't go in a straight line. It's circular. It flows in a circle, and it's always moving forward. So if you and I had the ability to look at the end of this Slinky and look at a certain date, we could go and see everything that happened on that date all through the history of the world. We could see it all on that particular day, what happened for every year that's gone by. Well, guess what? God looks at the circle, he can see everything. He sees everything. But everything is circular. There's times of the year that certain things recur and come back again and come back again and come back again. And if you look at the Jewish history, you can see it real good. The destruction of the first temple, destruction of the second temple on the same day. Some of the plagues that hit the Jewish people for disobedience on the same day over the years. So it's not as big as, it's as simple as a slinky, time is. And we start to look at it that way and not in a straight line, you realize we're just, it goes, you know, a flower that you plant a seed and it blooms, and next year it blooms again, and next year it blooms again, always at a certain time. You realize that we're just in that cycle that God started in the beginning. You know, here in Israel, we know that spring is here when there's one event occurs every year right around the same time. The almond trees blossom. They're the first blossoms we see. And as soon as we see the little pink flowers start to open up, we know spring's here. And we know what time of year it is. You can set your calendar and watch by when the almonds blossom here in Israel. And it's pretty cool. There could even be some snow on the ground up in the mountains where we are, and they start to blossom, and you know, oh, snow's gone. It's all over. Here comes the hot weather. So it's fun. When you start watching the cycle and you get involved in it, there's a lot of fun to be had in it. It really is. It's a joyful thing. And God wants us to be joyful about everything. Everything. I saved $200 a month. I go to Tom, what is it? Tom Horton? Tim Horton. Look at that. That's a lot of money. That pays an electric bill and a water bill and maybe something else. Phone bill, internet bill. It's amazing. So, excuse me, I still have a little bit of a cold lingering on. It's exciting. Now, Tony, you're talking about setting up that Facebook page in your local area. Angelica's doing the same thing. She's working on it. And Terry and Scotty are working on theirs. And they're doing the same thing, exact same thing that you want to do now. Tony's is doing the same thing. He's going to open up a local Facebook page about the Noahides. Now, what makes it local? What makes it local is you have to take that Facebook page, that group page, whatever you do. And it's better if you make it a group, not a page, but a group. And go into your local groups and share there. What do I mean by share? You don't go out and say, hey, come be a Noahide. You share different things, like people get interested and they start reading it, and they start, maybe will want to get together with you. You want to put little get-togethers. So Richard does his at restaurants once a month. They just decide on what restaurant they're going to, and they just meet. And so it doesn't go into anybody's home. Of course, you can't do that now. But Zoom is real easy to use. If nobody, you can just sign up there. It's free. You get 40 minutes a meeting if you want. So you can like open up a local Zoom room, just like I opened up this one. Of course, this is a paid one, so we can have as many people come in as we want, and we can. We're not limited in time, because it's a little tough when you get limited in time. But there's yeah.
Yeah, I've put up a Facebook page in Seattle called Seattle Noahides.
Yeah.
And we've only got a few members. There's not many Noahides in this area. But if anybody wants to come and look, it's a group, just like you said. So if anybody would like to look it up, they can kind of come see what it would look like if they put up their own page.
There you go. Now, as we're sitting here talking, there's 3 people right now that are going to do that. Everybody can do it. I love that. Robin, you see what Robin has up here? How to tell time. And I love it. AM coffee cup, PM the wine glass. I love it. That's great. You know, I looked at the name Robin and Clark, and you know, you have no idea what I thought of. Batman and Robin and Clark Kent. I'm just kind of funny that way. I connect things like that. Anybody want to talk about anything right now? Any questions, anything they want to say, anything they want to share? Mic's open. Just go ahead. Go ahead, Angelica.
I have a question. So, when the plague was, when Moses was around in Egypt, they didn't have vaccines then, did they?
No.
So then Hashem stopped the plague.
Yes.
Okay, so if they don't get any vaccine here, then you know what? Hashem's going to do it. It's in his timing.
Well,
Either way.
yeah, he just turns it off when it's time to turn off. I may have to go out and come back in. My whole thing is kind of grayed over. I don't know what the heck happened here.
Oh. Okay.
Yeah, you know what I'm going to do? The meeting will stay open, and I'm just going to jump out and come right back in. Hold on one second, because I'm not getting, something's not working here. So let me.
Oh, you're on the screen now.
I know, but I'm not. The computer here is not. It's not.
Oh.
It says my page isn't responding, so I don't know what's going on. There's a big hourglass here. I've never seen this before happen.
It might take a little minute. It might take a minute or two. That happened to mine too.
Yeah, it just says not responding. And so Zoom is not responding. Wait for it to resume to respond. Let's see.
We can't hear you.
Yeah, well, I can barely hear you guys. Let me go. I'll be right back.
Okay.
I'll be right back.
Right.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Yeah. Imagine waking up every morning and just saying, you know what, the circumstances around me right now are kind of cruddy. Everybody's sick. Whoever's not sick, we have to treat them like they're sick and stay away from them. But, you know, we can find positive in that. It gives us time to study. It's given me an amazing amount of time to study, you know.
Today's actually the first time in a week that I actually was able to read without my eyeballs popping out of my head. I got sick, so I didn't have the corona, but I had one kick butt flu. Holy smokes.
Oh boy.
It drained me. I feel so weak. But you said you're in Seattle?
Yes.
I haven't been there since 1989.
Oh boy.
I was stationed at Fort Lewis.
Oh, were you?
That's where I got up there in the mountains, I got my big old mule deer there.
Yep.
Yeah. I didn't know they only counted one side.
Yeah.
And
back east they count both.
Well, there it would have been a 6 point.
Oh, nice.
So me and these two other soldiers who are from the East Coast, we went into the bar to celebrate and said, "Oh, I got a 12 point."
Yeah.
People are like, "Whoa," buying drinks and everything. I said, "Oh, I wish we could see it." And I was like, "It's out in the truck." Well, let's go look. We show it to them. They go, "Oh no, that's not a 12 point." I said, "Yeah, it is. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. "Oh, where you from?" I said, "Michigan." They go, "Oh, we only count one side here." I said, "Oh, well, I guess I owe you guys some drinks." They go, "Oh no, we had a good time anyways."
You live in Michigan, Thomas?
Yeah, I'm here in Saginaw, Michigan, unfortunately.
In Saginaw, no kidding. My father was raised in Harbor Springs.
Oh, no kidding.
Yep. My father out of Shalom. He was born in Louisiana, but then moved up to Michigan as a child. Yeah.
Well, I'm here till August. I'm moving to Tennessee, so.
Oh wow, I got a good friend in Tennessee, in Western Tennessee.
I'll be outside of Knoxville.
Okay, yeah.
So I bring some of the northern redneck down to southern.
There you go.
I was actually raised kind of southern, so.
Yeah.
Yes, Washington. That was a beautiful state, though. I
It is a beautiful state.
I got lucky enough to go out into the mountains and see a lot of it. So that's where I learned how to surf.
I just moved back to Seattle. I was living in the mountains as a goat herder and a dog trainer for sled dogs. We trained sled dogs.
Oh.
Yeah, up in Stevens Pass.
Let me just jump in here for a minute. I want to welcome Diana and Miriam. Good to see you guys this evening. And you know what? It's amazing. You sled dogs and for the Iditarod and stuff like that.
Well, we didn't do the Iditarod. We did Leavenworth and Fish Lake, and we did tours and things like this. We bring people along on tours,
Pretty
but
cool.
we would do other races here in Washington. We bred the dogs especially for Washington conditions, actually. So they were.
We got the same thing here up in the UP.
Yeah,
Michigan.
the Upper Peninsula. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot of mushers up there. Yeah.
Yeah, they come from. In fact, I think 2 of them were from Washington State this
Yeah.
last year. But it wasn't so good this year.
Yeah.
Well, that's pretty cool. Pretty cool. Anybody else want to share anything right now, or if you have any questions you want to ask, it's a good time to do it. We're just sitting here, kick back. Emanuela.
Almost everything you said last night came out of my helper this morning.
Wow.
She was not here last night. She's a Christian. And nearly everything you said, we talked about, came out of her mouth today to
Well,
me.
that is good. You know why? Most of the stuff that we're learning and we're getting involved with is in our DNA. We were created in God's image. So these things are there. We just have to open them up and let them come out. Unfortunately, a lot of us, and of course your helper is female probably, and the women have a much deeper spiritual connection with God than men do. And it's also not bred out of them. What I mean by that is all of us went through that stuff growing up. Don't be a girl, be a man, don't cry, don't show your emotions, close up your imagination. It's actually, it's not bred out of us, but trained out of us. And we close it off. But as men, as we get closer, and we have to learn the connection with God much stronger than women do. And I used to travel USA, going to churches talking about the Jewish part of the Bible, what they called the Old Testament. I always tried to tell them, no, it's not called that. But they would invite me to come talk. And invariably, when I went into their meetings, and even if they were on like Sundays, you look out over the crowd, and it's basically women in the crowd. A lot of men weren't there. And they thought it had something to do with it made them less of a man or something. I don't know. The way that us guys are is just different. But there are many instances in the Bible where God says to Moses, tell the house of Jacob and tell the children of Israel. And
The women.
Pardon?
The women.
The women, the house of Jacob, every time God says house of Jacob, he's talking about the women. The women, because they are one of the most important parts and integral parts of his plan in Torah. So if you have a Christian woman come to you and say these things, she's tapped into the truth, but she hasn't come away, she hasn't realized yet the idolatry she's in. Just like you guys, you woke up one day, no, we didn't wake up, it was a gradual thing, but realized, wow, this is really idolatry. I'm not giving due credit to Hashem and due, I'm making him smaller by believing something else. And so when you hear it come from someone like that, they're like this close. They're going to wake up one morning and they're going to realize, wait a minute, and they're going to realize what it says in Jeremiah, I think it's 16:19, our fathers have taught us nothing but lies. We want the truth when the nations come up to Jerusalem. And that's when they're going to start. And most of you have been through some kind of process over your lives where it was a step-by-step thing. Most of you know, those of you that are new, that I'm born a Jew, and I did all the Jewish things when I was a kid and had my bar mitzvah and all that. And then I kind of wandered away, and wandered through a whole lot of stuff till I came back and realized, wait a minute, what am I looking for? I had it in the first place. So I was fortunate that I didn't have to go through what some of you went through in being raised up. And some of you, a lot of you in your adult lives spent a lot of time and put a lot of energy into that particular walk you were making at that time. And I say this an awful lot, but I'm going to say it again. Anytime the word religion is used about anything, any belief system, it's man-made, it's not God-made. And if you want to check it out, go find the word religion anywhere in the Torah. It's not there. You guys have woken up to the reality of life, and there's only one. Just walk in the way Hashem wants you to walk. Your creator, he created you in his image and wants you to follow him and walk his way. That's it. He didn't say go become part of a religion. And the first guy that was allowed to be an evangelist, and I think the last in our history, was Abraham. He had his little tent where people came and ate. And I don't know if you guys know the story, but the people would come and eat, and then after they would feast there, that he would say to them, okay, here's what I want you to do. I want you to thank the creator that created all this and gave it to you. And some people wouldn't do that. They were idol worshipers, so they just wouldn't do it. And they would say, just give me the bill. And he'd give them such an exorbitant bill. They'd look at him and say, you must be crazy. What is this thing? What are the words you want me to say? and this was the way he did it. And when you're reading a lot of the Jewish things, it says the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. Now, why doesn't it say the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob? It says the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. Why does it separate it 3 different times? Well, Abraham was a person filled with grace and mercy, rachamim. And so he was always to the side of this being graceful and being merciful to people and things like that. Then along
to the point
comes,
that he argued with Hashem.
right.
Yeah.
Right. And then along comes Isaac. Isaac never once left what we call Israel today, even though it was called something else then. Never traveled, never went anywhere. He was a man of learning, but he was also a man of what's called gevurah. Gevurah is strictness and following in a very fixed way what God wants, and there's no room for mercy in there. He was just a strong person like that. So we have Abraham, who was over on one side, and we have Isaac that was on the other side. Jacob got born, and he was a combination of the two. He was bringing it in balance, because that's what God wants from everything is balance. So we call it in Hebrew, if I translate it literally, he won the right to start the children of Israel with his 12 tribes. Why didn't Abraham? Why didn't Isaac? But Jacob did, because his way of wording things and relating to things was the middle road. And always you should remember this. When you're doing something for God, you can do it in the gevurah way, which is the strong way. You can do it in the merciful way, which can be over merciful and too much the other way. God doesn't want either of those roads. He wants the middle road from all of us. He wants us to walk down the middle. Now, sometimes it's tough. Sometimes we're way over here, and sometimes we're way over there, and it depends on the situation, depends on this, but it shouldn't. When you meditate on Torah day and night, what it means is, before you do something, you think about what's the middle that God wants, and then you follow that. Gvurah is nature. Nature is just nothing but gevurah. Everything that happens in nature, it happens. You can't change it. It's going to be. The lion's going to eat its prey. if a lion comes into a pack of lionesses, he kills all the cubs because he wants his cubs. This is gevurah. This is natural nature. If a tree falls and you're under it, you're going to get hit. The tree's not going to say, "Excuse me, get out of the way." Nature continues exactly doing what it was meant to do forever and ever. And you can't stop it. You can't change the weather like some people used to do, seed the clouds to make it rain and all this other kind of stuff. If lightning's going to hit, it's going to hit. And where it hits, somebody's going to get hurt if they're there. It doesn't have any mercy. No rachamim at all. So God has both parts in him. But if we lived only under his gevurah, none of us would live past about 15 years old when we started doing all kinds of goofy and silly things. You get mad, you say, okay, poof, you're gone. But that also takes away our free choice when we realize something like that. When we realize that there's something you do that God just goes, poof, you're gone, like he did with Nadav and Avihu, Aaron's two sons, it takes away your free choice because you're not going to do that thing. You see it, you say, oh, I'm not doing it. God doesn't want me to, and I don't have any choice about it now. And that's he gave us the free choice so we would be created in his image and we would be like him. Every father wants his children to be like the father or the mother, and God's both. He has a female side and a male side, but it's a long discussion. We can get into it later, but the thing is, he wants us to walk that middle road. He wants us to think before we act. Animals react to their situation. You may have a pet in your home, a dog or a cat, and it's in most instances it's very docile and it loves being petted, and it'll come rub against you or it'll come sit in your lap. But if you do something that may hurt it for an instant, what does a cat do? Right away the claws come out. What does a dog do, especially with a child? Sometimes it'll snap at a child. Not all the time, but sometimes. That's animal instinct. It doesn't say to itself, oh, that's only a 3-year-old, so I'll just lay here and not do anything. The cat's claws come out automatic, animal instinct. If we work with that, we're on the gevurah side, and it doesn't work. It's not what God wants from us. He wants from us the balance. But here's the problem. If you in the world, as the more merciful and good the world becomes, the more the other side gains power also. There's always balance. It's never like this. It's never like this. It's always balanced. Now, sometimes during history, it gets out of whack and something gets done to correct it and bring it back into balance again. Everything has to be balanced. In recent history, in the last 100 years, we saw what happened with the Nazis. Everything came out of balance. And then it came back into balance again. What's going on in the world today may be simply God's way of saying, put a little more balance in the world. You're getting too carried away with what you're doing. Everything to us has become a golden calf, like it did to the Israelites back at Mount Sinai. Every single one of us sitting here has had a golden calf in our lives, whether it's sports, whatever it is, even collections or toys. When I was outside and doing other things and used to make a lot of money, I had boats, I had cars, I had antique cars, I had all kinds of stuff. And I was so focused on that, I was just focused on, got to make some more money so I can buy some more toys. And I even had a bumper sticker on the back of my car that said, he who dies with the most toys wins. Now, what kind of stupid thinking is that? But I really believed that at the time. And that's all I wanted, a bigger boat, a nicer house, more cars in the driveway, nicer cars in the driveway, one for everybody in the house. At one point, there were like 7 cars in the driveway. All of them almost new. so the kids would have what they wanted, and Hannah would have what she wanted. My mother would have what she wanted because she lived most of the time. Everybody, and you get so fixed on that, you lose sight of the truth. You lose sight of it. You become so focused on it. Now, I don't regret all this in my life. I'm just relating in what my life was. Just like Cole said earlier, he's a dog trainer, and then you were a goat herder. Is that what you said?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, goat herder, and you have a lot in common with Tony. He's got a ranch out there, right? Ranch farm type thing.
Yeah, a little farm here. We're on 10 acres now. Just sold 5 away.
So everybody's got these things in their life, and some of the stuff you look back on and say, why on earth did I do that stupidness? Why did I do that? But you know what? It brought you here to God today. It's put you where you are today. So it's silly to regret it. It's just part of your life. It was part of your story. It's what made you who you are today. So you can be thankful for what you went through, good, bad, or ugly. And God says the same thing. He doesn't, you went through it, that's fine. It's over with. Here you are now. You've come home. You're with me. Well, let's go forward. You don't have to keep looking backwards. So when you start focusing on forward, and when you start focusing on God, you're actually meditating on Torah, because this is what is written in Torah. So you don't have to dive, to drown in Torah study or Gemara study or anything else. You just have to walk the reality that God gave us, not a religion, a reality. Now, you can religiously follow it, which has a whole different meaning, but it's not a religion. I want to read you guys something that someone sent me yesterday, a friend of mine who when I told him what I was doing and everybody I work with, and everything, what are you doing that for? Blah, blah, blah. There are people like that. And he was doing some study, and let me find it. There it is. It'll take a second to open up. I want to read you something that kind of, I hadn't seen it yet, but I'm glad that he sent it to me. Ha'Meiri here states that we are not allowed to transmit the secrets of the Torah to an idolater, since he serves the stars and denies the very essence of belief in God. How can you teach him parts of the Torah if he does that? By contrast, a non-Jew who studies the details of the 7 Noahide laws, which are incumbent upon him, deserves the honor due a Kohen Gadol. The study of the 7 Noahide laws may lead him to study most of the precepts of Torah. And this is from Sanhedrin. For those of you that know what I'm talking about, Sanhedrin 59a. And if you look at the Rama's response, number 10, it's in there. So when these people that talk about the Noahide people, that it's some cult or it's something the Jews are trying to control you or something, it's you guys have already learned it, but it just isn't so. And, we're not allowed to learn Torah. They're going to cut our heads off. Well, if you're an idolater, that's what you're supposed to get. But if you're walking with God, it doesn't make any difference if you're Jew or non-Jew. Especially you guys have a certain honor accorded to you because you've come away from that stuff. And you've walked out of the idolatry that you were brought up in. And I'm forgetting where exactly it is. I know I got it noted somewhere, but I'm not going to look for it right now. That God says that those who come in will be treated and honored more than some of his own nation. In other words, you become part of the nation and you're moved up in the nation. Where do you think in the Messianic time that they're going to have a Sanhedrin for Noahides? It's going to be guys like you, or you guys are going to end up being like the sages of the Noahides. You don't realize that yet, but you're learning enough and you're perceptive enough to know that people don't have to spend their whole lives studying to know this stuff. That's why we have the guys that study and learn and everything else. Then you got a question, you go and ask them. My dad told me once, he said, what makes you a wise person? It's not what you know, it's knowing where to go to get the answer if you need an answer. It's not you making up your own mind what's right or wrong. It's going to get the information you need and realizing that there's somebody smarter and you can go to that person or that book and get the answer. A book is a little tough though. When you sit and study, especially on your own, you're filtering it through your own eyes and your own mind only. And sometimes it can lead you down a funny path. It's happened to me in my studies. And then somebody will bring up the subject I was studying and say something. I'll say, wait a minute, that sounds righter than what I was thinking. And then I'll go to someone else that's wiser than the two of us, and we'll get an answer of the proper way to do it. That's why it's always good to hook up with an educator, hook up with a rabbi that can get you the answer. But understand something, when you go ask a rabbi, walk up to any rabbi and ask him a question, his head goes into this like filter mode. Now, they're not Jewish, but I can only give the answer from the Jewish point of view because that's what I know. But if I give that complex answer, it might bother that person or something. But most of the answers you're going to get are based on the rabbi's particular study and his expertise of study. Just because we're called rabbi doesn't mean we're smart in everything. We're learned in a lot of things, but we all have specialties. And the day's going to come when one of the specialties will be teaching the Noahites. Right now, there isn't one. So there are people out there teaching Noahites. It shouldn't be rabbis, to be honest with you. And there are non-Jewish people that think that all of a sudden, because they read some books, they can be teachers. And so you have to be very, very careful of that. You have to learn how to filter it in your own mind. Just because somebody says something you like doesn't mean he's a good teacher. It has to be somebody that knows the proper direction that God wants us to go in. All of us as humanity. And it's tough. It really is tough. When I first got involved with the Noahide stuff, Shira and I got involved. Why? Shira's a convert. She has 6 kids and 14 grandchildren living in Abilene, Texas. And what is the first question on everybody's mind? What about salvation? What's going to happen? Are we saved? And she was worried that she said, my kids will never be Jewish. They'll never go for all this stuff. I became Jewish because I had a fire in me that made me, she left 6 kids and 14 grandchildren to come live with me here in Israel because the fire was so great in her. She didn't make an intellectual decision. And if any of you are thinking about should I or shouldn't I, forget it. If you got to think that way, just forget it. Stay who you are. That's who God created you to be. Don't try to change yourself. If you're supposed to convert, there will be such a burning in you, you won't be able to do anything but. So the best thing for the majority of people is just stay who you are and be who you are because God had you born, put on this earth to be who you are. That is your purpose. You don't have to look for something else or think you can be better. We can always fix ourselves, yes, and treat other people better and be better. But because you're who you are doesn't mean you're any less than any other human being, Jew or Gentile. Doesn't make any difference. So you get stronger at being who you are, and the people around you will be affected by it, and you're going to wake them up. You're going to wake them up. I talk a lot about this because it's important to do that. It's important for you guys to really know this is part of who you are. Now, it's good. You might like to have Rabbi Goldberg teach you. You might have, and you have a good relationship with him. You might have a good relationship with some other rabbi, and you want to do that. But you can't walk up to just any rabbi and start talking about it because most of them will you'll confuse them. Most of them, you may get not the best reaction in the world. Why? Because up until this beautiful technology that we have, we spent our lives running away from people because all they want to do is kill us. So the rabbis taught everybody, stay away from them people. It's not healthy to be around them. So what's happening is a learning on both sides. The balance is coming back. You don't have the ones saying stay away from the Gentile. You don't have the ones on the other side, the Gentile on the other side bothering the Jew and keeping him from teaching. And it's coming into that middle road that God wants in everything. You guys are part of it. And I'm so glad to be part of it with you. It makes me happy every day. Every day I look at things and I'm joyful about it. And you know what? That's what God wants from you too. To be joyful every day. Corona shmarona. He wants you to be joyful. And you know what? If you do what the doctor, Rabbi Schneerson, the Rebbe said, God heals us all. He's a great healer. We pray about it all the time. But don't forget, part of his healing process is he gave you doctors that know what they're doing. So don't not go to a doctor. He was big on that. Right now, today, on this earth, 58 Hasidim died in the last 2 weeks. 58 rabbis that were learned people, that were tzaddikim, that were righteous people, but they didn't do what we were directed to do. They didn't. They continued with the minions. I'm not putting them down. I'm just saying this is the way they walked, and it cost them their lives. 58 of them so far. It's a shame because you have to combine everything together. That's why it's here in the world. It's for our good. So what I'm just saying is if a doctor tells you to do something, don't say, well, I ain't doing that. What do I care about that? And you take the precautions. You stay 2 meters away from people. You don't touch your hands to your face when you're outside. You wear rubber gloves at least. Some people like the masks. Wear them. I look like an insect when I go out with the mask I have. And I have a nylon raincoat that I use with a hoodie for my hat. You know, it goes over like this. That's how I go out of the house. When I come home, I take that off, hang it in the shower, turn the hot water on, and rinse it off and let it hang there and dry. And of course, I have my gloves and my mask. And I do this because I'm in the high-risk group. Younger people, they can ignore most of this stuff, but I see here in Israel now, most of the younger people go at least with rubber gloves, if not the mask also. So it's always good to follow those directions because they're smart. God gave us the ability to do this, and it's smart. Anyway, I think I preached enough. I get on certain subjects and I get excited about them. And Jew Vader, yeah, you saw my picture. I got it on my Facebook page somewhere there.
Reb Pesach,
Yes.
could I ask a question about about last week's parsha?
Sure, you may.
Well, the problem I have actually is the rabbi that I study with, Rabbi Mendy Levitin from Chabad here in Seattle, is stuck in Jerusalem right now.
Wow.
So the only way I can talk to him is through Zoom meetings, and I forgot to ask him this question.
Okay.
The question was with the word Vayikra. We read all through Shemot, we read Vayomer Hashem El Moshe Lamor. But then in Vayikra, God spoke to Moses. But then all of a sudden we hear him say, God called to Moses as opposed to speak.
Yes.
Why is there why the difference? I don't understand the difference. And also, there's a small aleph on the end of Vayikra.
Oh, good question. Okay.
I don't know what that's about. So kind of a two-part question.
Okay, let's take the first part. God spoke to Moses and told him to tell the children of Israel. He's ordering him. It's an order. He says, do this. Doesn't ask him to do it. He tells him to do it.
Yeah.
Vayikra is, and he called out. And it's here his relation, he wants us to know his relationship with God. Moses' relationship, that God felt very special about the relationship. Vayikra is, when you say it in that way, it's a term of my good friend, my friend, I'm calling out to you. When someone calls out to you, what is it they want usually? They want you to do something. They want a favor, but they're not commanding you. They're asking.
Gotcha.
Okay, so he's showing that he wants us to know. And they had a big discussion about this word. You know, if you read the Midrash, Moses says, "No, I want it. Why are you saying Vayikra? I want it to be Vayikar with a big A at the end." And God said, "No, I'm calling to you in this loving manner. And so I'm going to do what I want to do. This is the way I want you to write it, with a small A at the end." This makes it a term of endearment. It shows how much God loved Moses and who it talks a great deal about how we should relate to Moses. When I think of Moses most of the time, he's another guy, you know, just like Cole's a guy and Thomas is a guy, but that's not who Moses was. At this point, if Moses came into the Zoom room, we would be so overcome with just his presence that we would have to tell him, cover your face, like the Jews told him. Why? The closeness to God gives, when you're that close to the essence of God, there's a power there. And that power shows right out to the rest of the world. In the Holy of Holies, when the Bet HaMikdash stands, and the Shekinah is present there over the ark in the Holy of Holies, Jerusalem is a different city. You feel the electricity. You feel it all over the world. That God is connected there. A 3 or 4 year old kid in Jerusalem knows more about who God is than we know. These were different people in different times. We're learning about it. They experienced God. Can you imagine that? They actually experienced his presence. We learn about it. For us, it's on a piece of paper. It's in the Torah. And we read about it. We have no idea what the actual feeling is. And some of us sometimes get a very close feeling to God, but we do not know how these people felt with the energy of God actually running through the ground where they walked and how it felt. Now, some people get the feeling when they go to the wall in Jerusalem. You put your hands on the wall, you can feel, I don't know, I feel, this is me personally, it's like there's an energy there that flows into you, into me. And I know, Terry, I'm not telling tales out of school, he talks about it. He was in Jerusalem, and he by that, he was still a Christian then. He put his hands on the wall, and the feeling was so intense, he burst out crying. He had to let it out. Some people touch that wall and don't feel anything. They're not even ready for it. It's just another wall. When we read Vayikra, we're reading another word. We can't experience the love that God was conveying to Moses. Now, if we go to another section, and we read about a prophet named Bilam. He was a prophet to the non-Jew like Moses was to the Jew. God didn't want the non-Jew to come later and say to him, well, you didn't give us any leaders like that. You gave it to them, but what about us? So he gave them Bilam. And actually, about 2 or 3 years ago, we found in a temple up in on the Golan Heights that they excavated, not too far from here. They found actually an inscription and his name on the wall in one of the temples there, not Jewish temple, but a Gentile temple, and a little blurb about him there. So again, most people are going to say, well, you're proving the Bible true, but it's the other way around. God's just given us insight to let us know, but we already knew that he was one of the prophets. And when he talked to Bilam, he says, Vaikar. What it means is, by the way, I happened to bump into you, Bilam. What is it you want? What do you want from me now? It's a difference in the relationship. The large aleph on the end means that type of thing. So that's what that's about. But God wants us to know, and all of us to know, that he really, really loves Moses, and he loves us the same way. The whole world, not just the Jew, but the whole world. We're his creation. He loves us, and he wants us to accept the love, just like any father would. Sometimes he has to get us back on track. We go too far off track. One thing he'll never do again is replace the whole world. We've already been through two creations. We went through the Garden of Eden, and we went through the flood. And he said he wouldn't destroy the world by water again. Well, I guess he's got an unlimited amount of ways he can destroy the world if he got really angry at us. But he's given us a chance to grow up as human beings. A human being, all of us together, are like children going through stages. And humans, Adam, which means all of humanity, we're going through stages. We go through stages of learning and getting close to him. We pushed him away. We kind of turned our backs on him. And now we're in the process of bringing everything back into place and aligning everything. And that's the day, the day when the Mashiach's going to come. And it's going to take us quite a long time. And they're figuring almost 1,000 years to actually get to the point where we're ready to go on to the next level of life. Yeah. Now, you asked me something else about that. Was there something else you asked me about that? Or was
No, I was just questioning about the small aleph at the end.
Yeah.
You'd answered that.
And God, Moses didn't want God to, he says, why are you giving me this special attention? Why is he was so humble. He didn't want that. But he had no choice in the end. Mm-hmm. You know, it's like Moses, when God talked to him through the burning bush, it took about a week for God to actually convince him to do what he had to do, and they got a little angry with him. But this is, those people back then were different than you and I. And if you ever want to see the biggest difference between people in a closer relationship in time, in the Oklahoma State Capitol, there's a very famous sculpture there of an Indian sitting on his horse, his head bowed, holding a spear, and it was from the Trail of Sorrow that the United States Army the cavalry put the Indians through. But if you really look at that statue, the horse is beautifully done. You see its sinews, you see its muscles. But when you look at the Indian, you see the same thing. You see that human being, him as a human being, at that point in time in history, completely different than who we are. I mean, it blew my mind. I must have stayed there for 45 minutes just looking at that statue and realizing the difference between him, which was only a couple hundred years ago, and me as a human being. The difference in lifestyle, the difference in what made that person strong. And we talk about in the day that the well covering rocks over wells being moved, and stuff like that, like Jacob did. Well, those people were different. I live up here on Spot, and I look out over the Sea of Galilee, the Kinneret, and I can see down all the way down to the south end of it. Now, if you drive down there and you start going through the desert, you drive out and you get up in the desert into the Negev, and then you make this big climb to Jerusalem. It's about 90 kilometers, maybe 100 kilometers, which is 1.6, was it 60, 80 miles, something like that. And you realize that people walked there all the time. They walked there. Take a week, maybe a little more, maybe a little less, maybe 10 days. If they're taking if they take their flocks with them, they could take up to 3 weeks because they can't go as fast. If we had to do that, we just go, whoops, I knocked over my light. We would completely, how could they have done that? They found up here in the mountains by us, they found places that where during different revolts, Jews used to live, the Israelites, up in the mountains. To get to them, you had to climb a mountain, go down the cliff on the other side with ropes, and then into the cave. Some of those caves are still being discovered because most people, even the guys that are explorers, say, I'm not doing that. I can dig over here and look at all the stuff I'm finding over here. I don't have to go climb it up and down mountains, up and down cliff sides. But some people actually do it, and they're always finding new things. And they just found this huge settlement. To think, I screwed this up. Let me just turn this off, I guess. Nope, that's no good. They found this huge settlement, and inside they found, how do you say it in English? These clay vessels and everything from
Urns.
Urns from the time of the Maccabees. It's just amazing, absolutely amazing. This is annoying to get it back there. If I turn off my green screen, I just see green behind me. Okay, there you go. I don't know if it's annoying you guys, it was annoying me a little bit. This land here is amazing. When you walk, if you've ever been in Tiberias, Tiberia, and you walk down by the waterfront, you walk down, that waterfront is laid down on top of 3 levels of cities. And they fill in with sand, they cover it over, they know it's down there, but they cover it over at the present day level, but it's still down there. Somebody in later years or whatever, they decide to excavate. And they want to learn something new there. It's just amazing the way things are here. People all around Israel, they have houses. Well, then nobody has a house. Most of us we live in like what you would call condominiums. But the people that live on the ground floor, they have the right to dig down if they want. Sometimes you dig down and find whole different homes underneath. They were just covered over. It's amazing. It was a whole different thing. My point is, we are nowhere near who those people are. And we think of the name of Moses, and we think of the common guy back then. There's so much more than what we are as human beings today. We kind of gotten a little soft, a little this and that, but that's okay. What's important is we're all the same here. Human beings have been human beings here since Adam. So we all have the Chokhmah, Binah, and Dat, the knowledge, the wisdom, and the power to decide how to use it always. We just get different information all the time. And we process it. Some for the good, some for the bad, some for their own good and their own power and their own glory, and some for God's glory. Thanks for the question, Cole.
No worries. I'm full of questions. Every time I study Chumash, I feel full of questions. I just don't, yeah.
That's okay. I may not have the answers to all of them. I may have to look it up, but
Yeah.
I'm here. Oh, Blaine, that's a biggie. On on your time exercise, I got this. I was told once that there's a difference between Western understanding of time and Hebrew understanding. Western thought is that we face the future we see coming at us head on. Hebrew thought is that we face the past. The reasoning is quite logical. We cannot see the future until it becomes the present. We can see the past. There is, however, planning for the future. That's not seeing the future, but attempting to affect the future or make allowances for it. Yeah, that's true. I agree with you. But we look at the future or what's planning for what's going to happen by using what happened already. You were here when I put the slinky up, right? Were you here when I had the slinky up? And it was explaining about time. Thomas?
Yes, I did.
Okay, good. So once you realize that time is circular and not a straight line, then you realize you can use the past to affect the future. You can use the knowledge you've gained from what you've been through to go through what you're going through in the future, or what you run into as you go along. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. We don't have to think of something new. It's all there for us. So when we see something coming at us and something has happened on Earth that we really weren't prepared for, but you know what? Go read about the Spanish influenza. The exact same thing happened. In Europe, when there was a Black Plague or there were other plagues, the instructions given to the people were right out of Torah. Go in your home, stay alone, wash your hands, don't touch dead people, wash your hands. Don't take clothes that are on people that have died. And if you take them, make sure you boil them and wash them good. And I mean, the word sanitize isn't in there, but you boil it and you make it good. If there's mold, there's a certain way to handle mold. Already in the Torah, it's there in Leviticus. You have to realize that time is circular, it's not straight. Everything that happens, the first thing we look for is there's an answer already. We've already been through this. Let's go look for the answer in the past. And many times we find it. The only difference between Adam and us is technology. There ain't a whole lot of difference here. But we have now the ability, and you guys have all already used that ability as far as all the information from the past is open to you now. Even all the Jewish writings and the scholarly writings and all the commentaries, they're open to you. 3,300 years of knowledge is open that you can read and you can learn from. So use it, don't use it. Those that don't use it are going to make the mistakes that were made before. But if you have somebody that you know, or someone that has been studying it enough, is wise enough to look and say, wait a minute, I found something here that we can use now. What are we all doing? Washing hands? Well, go look in the Torah and see when it was talking about washing hands 3,000 years ago or 3,300 years ago. Washing your hands, keeping your body clean, keeping even your beard clean, keeping your clothes clean, keeping your dwelling place clean. Where do you think spring cleaning came from? The very idea of spring cleaning. We're doing it now. It's Passover time. We have to go through our house, turn everything upside down, clean it, make sure it's clean and ready for the days of Passover. But what if we've done our spring cleaning, we've gotten rid of anything that could cause us harm when the weather got warm, which would be mold and bad things, rotten things that maybe fell under a couch and we forgot, or the kid threw something up on the top of a shelf. Everything is already there. So we just have to take advantage of it. We don't have to invent anything anymore. It's all there. Look, in Solomon's time, what did Solomon say in Ecclesiastes? Everything that's ever been said or thought has already been said or thought. There's nothing new under the sun. period. So once we really realize that, then a wealth of information we can use. We don't have to sit down there and break our heads looking for the information. Western way of thinking is straight line thinking. And now I know there's a type of circular thinking that is bad news. That's what religions use. They just take a supposition and teach so that everything relates back around to that supposition, and each thing proves itself, but nothing proves the beginning point where you started at. But we have life, and we know that time is circular, so we can always look for the answer somewhere along the line. It's there. Has any country on this earth, including Israel, come up with anything new to deal with a contagious disease, a contagion of something? Go in your house, close the door, wash your hands, keep your hands off your face, keep clean. Torah teaching. Amazing. Absolutely amazing. So I agree with you yeah, but I'm not talking about that kind. Yeah, you're right. And that's why I tried to differentiate. I don't know if we could call what we're doing circular thinking, I'd call it circular learning. We're learning from things that already happened to protect ourselves now from what happened. No, you're right about that, Blaine. That's absolutely right. So once we realize, and I think that some pretty great guys, look, Isaac Newton, we all remember him, the apple fell on his head. He explained gravity and what it is, but he didn't explain why and how. God is why and how. It was created by God for a specific reason, and he said, oh, wait a minute, there's something called gravity that made the apple fall on my head. Okay, great. Well, why did it do that? Because it fell from the tree. The tree was holding it up. Well, wait a minute. Why did it fall down and not up? Why didn't it just hang in midair? There's a lot of questions he left unanswered. A lot of his papers are just now coming out to be published because people have just held on to them and didn't want to do it. And you're going to find out something very interesting. And you can Google it and verify what I'm saying to you. It appears that Sir Isaac Newton was a Noahide. They just didn't call it a Noahide in those days, but he has writings and writings and writings about it. He did a lot of studying and a lot of writing. So he's got right there. You'd be amazed at the people that are walking the road you're walking, but in their day, they couldn't even do a pips about it. Everybody knows who Galileo is, right? If you don't Google it, he was under house arrest for like 18 years by the Catholic Church because he said the sun went around, the earth went around the sun. It wasn't the sun going around the earth. They couldn't kill him because he was such a genius and everybody knew who he was, so they put him in house arrest. And he wasn't the only one. So all through history, this has been going on. And because I started thinking about it, do you know in anti-Semitism and a lot of people, especially in medieval times and maybe even today, think that under our hat here, we have horns because a picture Michelangelo painted in the Basilica or wherever he did, it shows Moses because it says in the Torah that when the people looked at Moses, there was Karen or in Hebrew. Well, Karen is a horn. It is a ram's horn, anything. The ones we blow, we call shofars, but they're actually a Karen. But a Karen is also a ray of light. It's a lot of other things. And we know that what people saw were rays of light coming out of Moses' face. But the Christians interpreted it as those people got horns. And that's the way he painted the picture. And that's what's happened to the whole of Jewish writings that have fallen into the hands of people that do not understand them and don't know what they are. They've been twisted and turned. Anyway, that's a little side thing. Anybody else have anything you wanted to, Blaine, did I cover okay? Answer your question? I hope so.
Oh, yes, that was very well. Thank you.
Okay, you're quite welcome. Thank you for asking a question. I love it when questions come up and I know the answer. Or I think I know it anyway.
You know,
Anyway,
Rabbi, I'm kind of amazed when I talk to a lot of Jewish people that they don't know the term Noachide. 22 years ago, when I first started being a Noachide, I actually went to a congregation here in Seattle, and a lady came up and introduced herself and asked me who I was. And I told her my name, and I said, I'm a Noachide. And she kind of laughed at me, and she said, I've never heard anybody say that in my life. And I said, what do you mean you've never heard anybody say that? She says, I've never heard anybody say they were a Noachide. And when I talk to other Jews, I find, to Jews in the community, I find a lot of them don't know what a Noachide is.
Well,
is that something you find in like in Israel or whatever?
yeah, no, but I did when I first found out what Noahides were, I just thought it was another cult.
Oh, okay.
Okay, but when you use the Torah words that God gives to people like you, Jews know immediately what it means. God calls you guys the righteous of the nations. But when someone says who you are, you can't tell them I'm one of the righteous of the nations. You're going to say, who the heck do you think you are?
Yeah.
That's that. So this term Noahide was coined. But come on, is there anybody here that isn't related to Noah? Do you know anybody that's not related to Noah?
Well,
we all come from Noah. That's what came through the flood. So we're all Noahites. We're all bloodline of Noah, every single one of us. So yeah, it's a teaching process. I teach the Jews as much as I teach anybody else. And when people, excuse me, I've been in Sfat now a little over 3 years. When people, it's all over Sfat what I do, when they see me, why do you take the time? What do you bother? What do you waste your time doing that for? And I love it when they do that because I can educate a little bit. Now that quote I read from that I read earlier from the Gemara, the guy that sent it to me was one of my biggest critics for over a year. Now every time he's seeing it now. And every time he comes across something in his studies, he sends me the information. Other people are doing the same thing. Here in Sfat, anyway. There are Chabad houses out there where I've talked to some people and it's changed their minds a little bit. And people are learning. I'm just a seed planter. Because Chabad is a group of guys that have known each other forever and ever and ever, and the families know each other anywhere they are in the world, and that kind of stuff. And here I am. I bit bop in 4 or 5 years ago, and who are you? And so I've been accepted in the Chabad community. The Chabad house in the old city of Sfat. If anybody asks about either conversion or Noahide, they say, go see our Noahide rep, and they send them to me. So I've gained a little bit of status in the community there. And one of the women's schools here, basically it's older women, invited me to speak there a couple of weeks ago, and I had a great hour and a half with them. And my wife's been getting questions about it since then. She goes to that school to learn also 1 day a week. So there's an education process going on from two sides. We're going from this side and this side, and we're bringing it to the middle. God likes everything going right down the middle. So don't be surprised. Not even when you go talk to a rabbi, like I said earlier, there are very few rabbis that are actually studied enough and educated enough to give you a good answer that applies to you. Because when you ask them a question, they're thinking from the Jewish side. How am I going to answer this? What am I going to say? For Jew. He doesn't look at you and say, oh, wait a minute. There's a way of thinking that I can give to you because this is what is for you. And I have a book that, I didn't write it, but it's called To Perfect the World, that is taken from a 600-page compilation in Hebrew, actually in Yiddish, of everything the Rebbe ever said about the Noahites and the righteous Gentiles. It's kind of been translated to English and screened down. I don't know how many pages the book is. It's called To Perfect the World. And I give it to these guys. I buy it from the guy that the author is up in Jerusalem. I buy it from him. He gives me a nice little price on it. And I give it to people that are interested, Jewish people. They're interested, especially Chabad. I said, what? You want to think differently than the Rebbe thinks? You want to, than Rabbi Shearson thinks? You want to think differently than him? Oh, what are you talking about? I said, here's a book, read it. And then, as we get more educated about things, our eyes and minds see things. How many times have you guys read anything anywhere and you've read it 2 or 3 or 4 times and all of a sudden you see words you didn't see before there?
Yeah.
Well, that's because it's a way of you were ready to see those words at that time. You had enough basic information that those words will come up to you off the page. Before that, you didn't have the information, but you didn't know you didn't have the information. So as you learn, it expands the way you look at things. And so that's what I'm doing with the Jewish people here in Sfat. I'd love to do it in many, many more places, but I'm trying to do it. And I like Terry and Scotty, I worked with them very intensely to make them actual teachers so that they're certified by World Noahide Academy or the Noahide World Center to teach. And they have these little certificates that say that they've been recognized for that. And Scotty wanted it specifically so if he could go into prisons or something and talk to people. He likes to talk a lot to people and put things in front of them that might change their life. I mean, he always did that, but he was doing it in a different way before. And Terry also. Terry was a very, very active pastor, and what was it? They were Sabbath keepers. Armstrong, whatever that group was called. I don't know if you guys know that particular one. If you look up Armstrong or whatever, you'll see it. It's there. And he was really active. And there are other people that have been active in groups like that that are now coming out. That there's another young couple that hopefully they're going to get on board also. So we can take these people that know how to teach already and show them how to put the information over so other people will listen. As you talk to people, you may mention words that they see a different way than you see them. And you have to think about that because they're what we call trigger words. I try not to use the word Lord in anybody I'm talking to that's not Jewish. That's called a trigger word. What do they think of as soon as you say Lord? They talk about Yeshka.
Yeshka.
So you're not talking the same language all of a sudden. It's like they're talking a foreign language. Or you're talking a foreign language to them and they're not understanding what you're saying. What they're saying is, oh, he thinks the same thing I am, so his words are just reinforcing what I think. So you got to be a little bit, it takes a little learning to get a handle on that. But you can do it. Okay, wait a minute. I gotta copy and paste that because I lose this chat when it goes. when I turn it off, I don't save the chat, but that's okay.
I'll try and message it to you.
No, I got it now. I put it on a notepad, so it's okay.
Okay.
I
All
got
right.
it. I'll give him a call. Now, I've called Chabad people in different places around the world to try to help people, and they just don't want to even listen to you, don't want to talk to you. That's their problem. It's not mine. I talked to Chabad at 770, and I'm trying to convince them to set up a whole department just for this. But they haven't quite. They don't have a leader you go and talk to since the Rebbe passed away. Nobody wants to get into that. So
Do you know Rabbi Spritzer?
I've heard of him, but I don't know him personally.
Yeah, he's at 770.
Yeah.
He actually sent me my Tehillim.
Oh yeah.
So I know that he's very, knowing that I'm a Noachite and whatnot, I know that he's very friendly towards Noachites.
Spritzer. Okay.
Yeah.
Right now, 770 is closed, but
Yeah,
eventually,
it is.
maybe eventually I'll be able to get a hold of him. But
Oh, I'm sure you will. Yeah.
I just don't be discouraged if people make fun or they turn away or they don't want to listen. That's all I'm saying. But choose your words carefully when you speak to people. Scotty has a great. Go ahead.
Have you heard of noahchabad.org?
noahchabad.org.
Yeah.
Is that the ones in Haifa?
No, it's run by 770. It's connected to chabad.org.
Yeah.
But it's all one word, noachhabad.org.
Yeah.
And what it is when you type that in, it comes up with the 7 Noachitic laws. And from that website, I got these business cards that have a picture of the Rebbe on it and has the Noachide laws on them.
Yeah. Yes.
And then it has the explanation on the back.
Right.
And I find I give these, every time somebody asks, because I wear a kippah all the time. I always have a kippah on.
Yeah.
And people ask me, am I Jewish? And I tell them, no, I'm a Noachide. And they ask what that is. And I tell them, well, it's, I give them a card and I explain it to them. And sometimes I get questions about the kippah, but I explain to them that the yarmulke is just it's a rabbinical law. And I wear it to show the fear of God upon me. And also to always have something on my head in the presence of Avinu Hashemayim, So these cards have come in very handy for me, I've found.
Oh, very good. Yes, I've seen that. As a matter of fact, I have a stack of them sitting here in my office.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't think that's where I got them from, but I don't know. But yeah, that's a good idea. That's good to put that
What's
out there.
that called again? What is that called again?
Noah Chabad, NOACHABAD.org. So it's like Noach and Chabad all in one word. Yeah, thank you, Blaine.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, their Chabad houses aren't helpful only because the person is not aware yet, for no other reason.
Yeah,
they're just not aware yet. Eventually, they will be. Maybe not ready to be. Maybe they have other things going on there for them, as far as they're concerned. Their area that takes precedent with the Jews in that area, that they don't have the time yet to get involved. It's a lot of things. Understand that you can go and try to get somebody to come teach, or you can approach it from a different standpoint and find someone that's already teaching, get them to come to you. Now, today, it's not a problem. I used to do it back in the day when I was someplace else. I used to hold big meetings in people's homes or even in a rec center or wherever they had them. How do we do it? Big screen TV and a microphone. That's all it takes to have a group meeting. They would put me on the TV. I'd do my thing. People would ask questions. I'd answer the questions. It's just like I was there in the room. I do it for home groups still. I have a couple of home groups that I do every week. And we do it that way through Skype, whatever anybody wants to use. I kind of like, I'm into the Zoom now. It's just a lot easier. But if people want to do it on Skype or on Messenger, Facebook, it's okay with me. And if anybody out there, any of you guys need help, have questions, want me to talk to somebody, I'm always available except when I'm asleep or on Shabbat. And I don't sleep very much, so don't worry about what time of day or night it is that you call me. I always keep my cell phone, my smartphone on the nightstand. I put it on vibrate, and usually that's enough to wake me up and not wake up Shira. But if you need me for anything, it's okay to do that. I know where you've been in the past, it's always, you call the secretary and this one's too busy or not time to talk a lot of times and things like that. But that's, look, we're a community. We're not just some organization members, we're a community. We have to help each other. And I've taken it upon myself, this role, that I'm available when people need me. Yeah, I don't care what it is to talk about. Just, it's okay. Or if you have questions or you want to get in, whatever, send me a message. I usually see a message within 15 or 20 minutes. And so I can respond. If you want to talk, say, can you talk? And like on Messenger, we can talk back and forth. And people do it quite regularly with me. So if you want anything, don't be hesitant to contact me and we can talk, or if I can help you in some way, if I have the ability to do it. One of the things about my life is I've been through a lot of stuff, so I have a lot of information about how to get through things, but there are things I don't have information to how to get through. One of them is the pandemic that's happening. I've never been through one. I'm not old enough to have been through the Spanish flu back in the 1920s. Not quite. So everything, all the information I'm getting is new. It's new for you guys. You have to process it in a way that it doesn't, it's going to generate fear in everybody. Let's put it that way. But that fear doesn't go to panic. That you look at it and say, okay, here's the facts. Here's what I have to understand. How can I handle it in me, inside of me? These times we're going through. I just read an article that kind of upset me a little bit. What they're finding is people that are recovering from having it already, or some that don't have it, they're having what they call relapses, but not relapses into the flu, back to drugs and alcohol and stuff like that. Because that's the way they handled the pressures of life before, and that's how they're going to handle this pressure. Those people need your help if they want it. We all know that it's awful difficult to deal with people like that. But you have to be able to handle it in yourself first. And let me tell you something, you got 99.8% of the world sitting out there waiting for somebody that has been there and done that, what you've been through and learned and everything else, to explain to them how they can move forward. It's like a person coming out of drugs wants an ex-druggie to teach them. A person that's coming out of, what do? At AA, they have the alcoholics teach the alcoholics. So, and that's good. They want to know someone that has suffered like they've suffered. What happened? Everybody that comes out from other religions, I don't care what religion, they're angry. They're angry about the lies they were taught. And there's no reason to be angry about it because the people that were teaching them weren't lying to them. They were just teaching what they were taught. Any lies that happened actually a long time ago. So the people aren't teaching you lies. They're passing on information that they've learned as they grew up, that they got from their parents, who got from their parents, who got from their parents. Being angry, looking back on it, putting it down, what you went through, is a waste of time. It doesn't give you anything. It doesn't have you go forward. So the best thing to do is try to put it behind you. Just put it behind you. Last night we were talking about music. I was talking to Shira at dinner tonight, and I said, Carrie told me that at the church she went to, the only music they had were the Psalms set to different tunes. They didn't have anything about anything else. And he says Terry said sometimes it's, one of those songs that he really liked would come up in his head. And you know how songs get stuck in your head for a whole day, and he just go over and over. And he felt a little guilty and felt bad because that's what he used to use in the church. And Shira says, well, those melodies come up in my head too from her time. And she doesn't sing the words, but she does the melody, how we all do. And if a song like that comes into your head, you don't have to feel guilty about it because you're not worshiping anything, and music is good for you. And you can even take the melodies of songs you've learned in the past and put new words to them. It'd be amazing what could happen. Right now, nobody's selling any CDs that say music for Noahides. But we need somebody to start doing it. Music's a part of our life. If you play an instrument, and Richard has promised us he's going to play his guitar and do some stuff for us. And I actually restrung my guitar yesterday. It hasn't been that way in about 2 or 3 years, I guess, since I moved to Spot. And I like to do that. I like to take melodies of songs that I knew. I grew up in rock and roll and the blues and rhythm and blues. So I'll take those melodies and put my own words to them. Back then, we used to do that all the time because that's how you learned how to do things. And it's fun to borrow those melodies. So if you have a song that you like and you like the melody, put some new words to it. And, and we can share it with people. We want to do things with joy, not with anger, not with, well, I'm so angry at you because you lied to me and stuff like that. No. God wants us to do everything with joy. And I always try to talk about that all the time. Joy, joy, joy. If you're happy and you know it, clap your hands. I love that song. I love it. It's joyful. I know it sounds silly. I know the little kids do it, but I love it because it's joy. Simply joy. Okay. If you need help with anything, if you want me to pick up the phone and talk to somebody, let me know. I will do whatever I can. I can't say I'll be successful in all things because you can never know that, but I can certainly help. And I appreciate you guys coming here. We're here Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday at 10 o'clock Eastern Time, and on Wednesday at 8 Eastern Time, which is a pretty big meeting also. And because that's that one we've been doing for quite a while already. And we just started doing this about 2 weeks ago to see if people want to come. And, if people don't want to come, it's okay too. Don't feel obligated to be here every night. You have no obligation to me or anybody else. But if you want to come in and bring with you some questions, bring some stuff to talk about, and it'll be fun. I mean, we'll find out, maybe how some other people are looking at it. Cole, evidently, you've been around and studying for quite a long time, so you may have some things that you can help out in answering things. And
I actually work, you mentioned somebody that goes into the prisons. I actually work with a nonprofit called Jewish Prisoner Services International.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I'm their Noachide guy. Whenever
Good.
Noachide writes them a letter and wants services from them, I'm the one that has to write back and explain to them, sorry, you're not Jewish, you're Noachide, but here's what we can do for you.
That's great. That's good.
Yeah.
Wow. Good to know.
Yeah.
Good to know.
Tikkun Olam.
Tikkun olam. That's exactly right.
That's what it's all about. That and Piri and Shavuim, you know.
Yeah,
It's all about the mitzvot. So
absolutely.
That's so good to hear about the prison system. I worked in the prison system at one
Yeah.
time, and I used to do the arts and the crafts for the prisoners and go sell them. And yeah, it was interesting. It's very interesting, but yeah, awesome to hear.
You guys, all of you here that are here now and those that come in and out, every day, you guys all have something in common. A common history, maybe, and a common want to do the right things and tikkun olam. And so you should know you get encouragement from one another. And it's good. And this is one of the reasons Tony said, I don't know, he goes, there's a locking door. Yeah, I've been on the other side of that locking door. It's kind of nerve-wracking. It's kind of nerve-wracking, even if it's only for 3 or 4 days. It is nerve-wracking.
Passage, you know what? With the AA, it's not the same like it used to be. They tell you now, once an alcoholic, always an alcoholic. That's not true. When you are an alcoholic, yeah, when you're drinking, you know what? You're in your addiction. Yes, you are. But once you are not in that addiction anymore, you can't say that you are an alcoholic anymore. This is the part where in our area anyways, I would actually advise them not to go there because that's what they're teaching. So, and I actually go the other way around. No, you're not an alcoholic. How can you say you are one when you have quit it? It's a lie, basically. To me, that's a lie.
Well, both statements are true, actually.
absolutely.
So both statements are true. Oh, you got a psalm book ready by you?
Who, me?
Anybody have a psalm book right there, Andy?
No, I do.
Okay, do me a favor, read Psalm 1.
Happy is the man who has not followed the counsel of the wicked, or taken the path of sinners, or joined the company of the insolent. Rather, the teaching of the Lord is his delight, and he studies that teaching day and night. He is like a tree planted beside streams of water, which yields its fruit in season, whose foliage never fades, and whatever it produces thrives. Not so the wicked. Rather, they are like chaff that wind blows away. Therefore, the wicked will not survive judgment, nor will sinners in the assembly of the righteous. For the Lord cherishes the way of the righteous, but the way of the wicked is doomed.
Absolutely. Now, read me the first sentence again.
Happy is the man who has not followed the counsel of the wicked, or taken the path of sinners, or joined the company of the insolent.
Okay. Can any of us fit that description? Anybody in this room that can say that that's who they are? I can't. How do I get there, though? Am I going to be classified forever a wicked person and reap? Why? Why? Because when I was evil, I was evil. But when I did something good, I became righteous. At the time you're doing something righteous, you become righteous. Your definition changes. But I can go out right out the door tomorrow and do the evil again, so I become evil again. We're always going up and down between evil and righteous. And in the Tanya, it's stated that person that is going up and down is called a person that walks the middle road. He's not a real righteous and he's not a real bad guy. He's just walking the middle road.
Mhm.
So, but when you're walking the righteous path, you're on the middle road, but you're righteous. At the time you are doing it, you're righteous. As soon as you stop doing it, you fall back into what's called a rasha, or wicked.
Mhm.
So an alcoholic is always an alcoholic because we can always be wicked. And we have to take steps to make sure we don't fall back into it. We can keep the title of righteousness. But we have to be aware that we can fall back into that other side at any instant with a word, with a look, with how we treat somebody. And that's the same thing with an alcoholic. He has a tendency to fall into that other thing. So he has to be constantly aware that, yeah, that's waiting for him to be if he doesn't walk straight. And we have to understand. See, God says something, it's very interesting, and I can't remember exactly where, but somebody here is going to know about it. God says a righteous man can do his whole life being righteous and then do something wicked and die, he's then wicked. If someone is wicked their whole life and repents, it says if the righteous repent and become wicked and do something wicked and they die, they're wicked. If a wicked person can walk his whole life being nasty to people and then repent and do good, then he becomes righteous at his death. So what we did in the past is always a pit waiting for us to fall into, and we have to be careful. You know what? Here, amongst the Jews, we say a person that does teshuvah comes back to being a Jew. No righteous person is worthy enough to stand in their shoes. Why do they say that? Because a person that walked away and came back made a conscious choice to come back. A righteous person never left his righteousness, so he doesn't know what it is to make that choice. He doesn't know what it is to be out in the world and have to leave it and come back. Well, unfortunately, a drug addict and alcoholic is the same thing. So there's I look at myself as, okay, I'm not a wicked person, but I have the tendency to do it. In a heartbeat, I can do it again. Get angry at somebody, say a bad word to somebody, talk bad about somebody, that makes me wicked again. For an alcoholic, become an alcoholic, all he has to do is go like this. So he's got to know the pitfall is always there, and that's why they teach once an alcoholic, always an alcoholic. Because the pitfall is there, and he has to be aware of it at every instant of his life, his or her life. We have to be aware that evil is waiting for us every instant of our life. So we do the steps to keep us from doing it. And that's why they teach that, actually. And I kind of go along with that. Do you want to say something, Tony?
I was going to say the only thing I have to compare it to as a life experience is I smoked for almost 30 years, and I'm 8 years out of it, but still, every once in a while, there's that, God, I could go for a cigarette. And I know that one is enough to start that cycle all over again.
Right. It's good that you're out of it. You've been out of it for 8 years.
Yeah.
That's very good.
I have to agree with you, Rabbi, about the once an alcoholic, always an alcoholic. It's funny you should bring that up because this is a 22-year AA coin.
Wow.
Yeah, I was at an AA meeting last night, as a matter of fact. I've been dry for 22 years, but just last week I had to deal with triggers that made me feel like I wanted to go have a drink. But I haven't had a drink in 22 years. But just last week, I was going through urges because I'm sitting here in the house all alone by myself, I'm not married. My kids are all grown. So there's some things going on in my life that are a little bit of a downer, but you know, it had me wanting to drink, and it made me realize that once again, that I am still an alcoholic. Even after 22 years of that, was better than 22 years without a drink, I'm still an alcoholic. You know, I wish I could be one of those people to where after 20 years, you could just say, you know, I don't have it anymore. It's not in me, you know, and maybe there's some people out there that can do that, that can be, you know, be dry for a time and then say, I'm good. I don't have any triggers. I don't have any issues with it, you know, and more power to them. But I wish I were that strong.
You know, I'll be quite honest with you. The only thing that stopped me from being an alcoholic in my life was my dad used to drink a lot.
Yeah.
And when I went out and started working, I would go for drinking lunches and stuff like that. And one morning I woke up and said, no, I used to get up in the morning instead of having coffee, have a beer and a shot or something, you know. I was like that. And then I decided I'm going to put a rule in my life. My rule is I don't drink before work or during work. Only after work I'll have a drink. And that's what kept me sober. Although at times I wasn't sober, but it kept me sober. And I didn't turn into an alcoholic. And that's what kept me straight. But I saw what it did to my father. I mean, he was a good man. He wasn't drunk all the time, but he was a drinker. And it had me and from that experience, I learned that life is a series of decisions we make. When Shira told me she wanted to convert, I was more or less a secular Jew at the time. The only thing I didn't do was drive on Shabbat. I didn't drive on Shabbat. And once in a while I go to services and things like that. And she told me one morning, she says, I need to convert. I need to be Jewish. Out of clear blue sky. I said, okay, I'm one step behind you all the way. She says, you're the Jew, you're supposed to lead me. And I said, no, in this case, you have to be out in front. Everybody has to see you out in front wanting to do this or you'll never get it done. If they think I'm pushing you from behind, it won't happen. Anyway, we went through the process. We decided to move up here to Tzfat. As we're going through the process, can you imagine two secular Jews moving into a religious neighborhood, living together in their eyes, boyfriend and girlfriend? But she said to me before we moved up here, she says, oh, all of a sudden you're going to start being religious. All of a sudden you're going to go to services every day. All of a sudden you're going to, and I said, yeah. I said, yeah, I made the decision. When we get up there, it's like I'm flipping a switch. Poof. I moved on. And that's what happened. But I learned how to make that switch thing from alcohol. Because I made a decision about alcohol when I was in my 20s about when I would drink, when I would allow myself to drink. And I kept it. I mean, it would have been real easy to go off of it, but I kept it. Why? Because I had another goal, which was making money. And I made a lot of money and lost it and spent it on toys and all that kind of stuff over the years. I wish I had it in the bank, but I threw away. And now I live off of Social Security. But thank the Lord, we've got a paid for place and, you know, stuff like that. We don't have to pay rent or anything. But there are times when you want to go back to the old way. I want my boats. Now, it's not as bad as alcohol, but I won't go into a marina here in Israel because that urge comes over me so strong that I want a boat. And then if I start focusing on it, I'll end up with it. I could sell my house, buy myself a nice yacht, that kind of thing. But I don't want to go there. So what do? I stay away from the marinas. Everybody deals with these things in their own way. And it's good when you have help like you, Cole, and that you're strong enough to go through those 20-some years, my hat's off to you. We say in Hebrew, kol hakavod. You know that? You ever heard that before? Kol hakavod. All the honor is yours.
All the honor, yeah.
Yeah, all the honor is yours.
Toda rabah.
And you're now on this path, walking this path, which you've been on for a while, and you can help other people in great ways. It's good. Go ahead, Angela.
I used to, that was my job. I used to work downtown East Side with the homeless and people in addictions. And that's why I say, once an alcoholic, always an alcoholic. I tell them, there is no way you will be that if you follow God.
That's
If you have God in your life, who's telling you that you are not in addiction, that you are the image of God, you are, you can be free of all that. Your thinking has to change.
Right. That's exactly what it says in Psalm 1. That's
so when your thinking changes, and you don't, okay. When I had these people, okay, they needed someone to walk with them. When you have nobody to walk with you through this, then you're going to go back to what you know. Like, it's a given. It's a given. Some people are very strong and they can say one day, I'm not going to do this anymore. And they're okay. But the most of them don't have that. They will, they need a mentor. But to find mentors is a hard call too. And yeah, it was really, really hard. But many of them, like, I can give you names. I have a whole book full of them where they are totally good, not even thinking about it, not, if God is in your life, if Hashem is there, you're walking with Hashem, how is it, and you are in community, okay, you have a mentor that you can talk to when you have a problem. Oh, I just feel like, having a drink. They call you and you talk to them. They get stronger. Each time around you get stronger when that inclination comes back. Okay, you get stronger. And then, you know what? Eventually you say no to it. Totally no. No more. I'm made in the image of God. I need to take care of my body. I need to clean up. I need to stay clean. And then so now they help other people. And it's they are so happy. And yeah, a lot of them, they have their own apartment. They are working. I mean, not now working, but nobody works here now. But yeah, it's something the person has to totally want it. Once you want it, and for that reason, I'm not saying AA is bad. Okay, I'm not saying that because they have helped a lot of people. I'm just saying when I heard that you're always an alcoholic, baloney. I just tell them baloney. That's not even true. That's a lie. Because once the lie is in your mind, when you have that inclination coming back to you, you're going to believe that lie. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's who I am. Well, I can have a drink then. No. For me, it's just by experience that those words that I'm always an alcoholic, those words mean something. All your words mean something when you say something. And so that's how, it's just, okay, let's say it's my opinion, but that's okay. If you want to say that this is who you are, okay, fine. I will never agree with words that say something bad about you. and that will come back. I will never ever say that, because I stand on Hashem's word. I'm made in his image, and I can't, how would I defile like my body? I'm supposed to keep it clean. I'm supposed to walk in his ways. How do I, yeah, anyways.
Well,
I
but
never
see,
could
that's,
understand that part.
yeah, because you can't think that way, but not
No.
everybody thinks that way.
No, not everyone thinks that way.
So the story you just told is the same story of the Exodus of Egypt, where they kept saying to him, why did you bring us out here? Let us go back where we had everything, what we needed. It's the same circular thing that happens to people all the time. And when you're not drinking, you're not an alcoholic. But all of a sudden, when you get the idea that you want to do something, then you got to deal with it. It's just like a person that was involved in anything else in their life, whether it's gambling or whatever, even eating or anything else, or not walking in God's way. While you're not doing those things, you're okay. But the minute the thought comes into your head, then you make a decision again. Am I going to keep going that way, or am I going to fall off and go the other way? So it's always good to remember that there's a trigger in there. You might not think about it for 2 years, 3 years, a month, whatever. And then all of a sudden the thought pops back into your head again about doing this stuff. Cheap earphones, they won't. I have to buy some better ones.
I'm strong on that.
So both opinions are true. Both of them, it just depends on how the person himself is looking at it. And I'm sure you helped a lot of people by telling them, no, you're not an alcoholic anymore.
That's right.
When you're not drinking, you're not an alcoholic. That's true.
You never will be one. If you put your mind to it, Hashem will help you with it. Whether it comes in your mind or not, Hashem will help you. I drank, I smoked. Do I now? No. No more. When I said no, it meant something. The word meant something to me.
It has to mean something to you, right?
Yes. If it doesn't mean anything to you, then, oh, well, you know what? I'm an alcoholic. I will always be one.
Look, you guys came out of a place. You guys came out of a place where people were born in sin and were always sinners.
That's what I came out of. Yes.
That's what you were taught. So
that's what I came out of.
Well, I did, but the people believe it so much that they'll do things okay, and then if they sin, they say, "Well, okay, that's the way I was born anyway." But okay, I'll ask God for forgiveness and keep going forward. Which that's also one of the biggest lies ever taught on this planet.
Yes, I agree.
People are born in sin.
I agree.
But all the things we're talking about are all the same thing. And if a person is strong enough to throw the switch and do it, then they can do it.
Anyone can.
Yeah, but not always. Well, but not always about the things you throw the switch on. Everybody has those things in their life that they can throw the switch on, but it may not be what you would throw the switch on.
Okay,
so,
I understand that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a big understanding.
But what does Hashem say?
I don't understand the question.
What does Hashem say?
He says you have the right to make a decision.
Hashem gives us free will.
Mm-hmm.
So when you have that free will, Hashem also says to you, you are made in his image. So, wow, that is a whole story again. You are made in his image. How am I supposed to act? And how am I supposed to walk? So then a person learns on how to walk in that way. And then you can say, oh, from today on, there is no more.
Well, but that's for you, and that's good.
And
but God,
Because you have, yeah,
Angela,
you
you need
have an
to,
experience.
you had an experience.
Yes, and so
Okay.
because I
So you
have
just
had
have
that
to,
experience,
but you have to
I can
understand.
tell this to someone else.
But
And
that
that's-
doesn't mean that your experience is going to do anything for them. See, this is the
It
thing.
can though.
No,
And
well,
it has so many times.
yes, it has, and it's for the time you knew them. You don't know how it is today, maybe, but
Oh, I do.
Yeah.
I do. I am in touch.
okay. All right, good. But let me finish what I want to say.
Okay.
What I want to tell you is I learned from rabbis to drink and to smoke, but that doesn't mean they're not walking God's way and they weren't created in the image of God. In your opinion, it can be whatever you want and it's okay. But they've spent their life studying God's word. They're experts at it. They know what it is. And some of them sit at the table where they have to sit back away from the table a little bit because their bellies are so big. But because they're created, because they're created, and some of them are so overweight that I said, how can this guy,
Yeah.
Whatever. But that's their choice for their body and their
Yeah.
issue with God.
I agree.
Okay, so
I
they it doesn't make them not have a good relationship with God. It doesn't make them that we should have a bad opinion about them or anything else.
So then I have another question.
Sure.
Is your body not holy?
No. You're holy, but your body is not. Your body lives and dies. It's
So
not
when you're-
holy. You're holy.
Okay, I got this from a rabbi. So
Yeah.
he said, your body is holy.
Well, you can look at it that everything created is holy because God created it. But God gave you your body to take care of any way you want. You have free choice. Your body you leave behind anyway, eventually.
Yes, I agree.
The body is just the animal that carries around you in it. Like
In
a
it,
car,
yes.
like when you get in your
No.
car. Okay.
Yeah.
Some people take care of their cars, change the oil on time, keep the gas tanks full, take care of the tires. Other people have blowouts going down the highway because they didn't take care of their tires. Their engine seizes up because they let the car run out of oil.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
It's a vehicle. The body is a vehicle. Now, the best thing to do is to take the best care of it you possibly can to get enough mileage, as much mileage as you can out of it.
Right.
But the mileage you get out of it doesn't depend on how you take care of it. Understand that. All of us are here for a length of time. The minute we come out of the womb,
Yes,
God has
that's
already
correct.
predetermined that. He doesn't predestine us for anything, but he knows exactly what's going to happen in our lives. Sometimes I look at myself and I look in the mirror and say, how the heck did I get to be 75 years old?
Mhm.
With all the things I've done in my life and all the ways I've treated my body, how did I get here?
Mhm.
But I'm here. So, and I can't say that I was the healthiest animal on the block.
Mhm.
And there was a time I worked out every day. There was a time my stomach wasn't down here; it was up here where my chest is. Over time it drops down there. You'll find out, unless you really work hard at it. And there are people that you'll see pictures of 70 and 80 and 90-year-olds that their bodies are so physically fit you'd mistake them for somebody in their 20s or 30s. But this takes dedication and single-mindedness. And not everybody wants to put that kind of energy into it. They want to do other things also. So, yeah, alcohol is bad, drugs are bad, smoking is bad, overeating is bad. A lot of things are bad for your body.
Anything
But
addiction.
but there are addictions that are much worse for your head.
Mhm. There's many.
Because addiction that gets stuck in your head, one that takes you away from being able to repent before God, that actually is life-ending.
Mhm.
That's life-ending.
Mhm.
Your body you know, it's just like I said, it's a vehicle. It's an animal vehicle to carry you around so you can do things with your hands and feet and eyes and mouth. The neshama, that part of you that's God, is a passenger inside. Why? So you have free choice. If that part of you that was God dictated to the body, then you're a robot. You're a cat or a dog or elephant or giraffe or whatever you were born to be. So it's always important to remember that. And not everybody with the mind part of them can handle the body part of them, so to speak. And so you have to hit a middle road, and you have to know. So yes, a person that we call righteous, and there are righteous people in the world, they don't, their mind doesn't even think about doing something not righteous. Now, that's not what I am. That's what most people are not that way. You're born that way. God put you on this planet that way. Our minds work a little differently. When you can stop not having, you get to the point where you don't have to make a choice because the choice doesn't come up in front of you. You just know you're righteous. You're walking God's path. And somebody makes you angry, a thought doesn't go through your mind, I'd like to smack the guy in the mouth. That's the difference between a righteous person. See, a bad person says, I'm going to smack him, and smacks him. A person we call Bnei or in the middle, the thought goes through his mind, but he controls it and doesn't do it. A righteous person doesn't even think about doing it. Those are the differences between people. So it's very hard to constantly, I mean, I could never be that kind of righteous that those people are. Now, God calls you guys righteous Gentiles, the righteous of the nations. It doesn't mean that you don't do things bad. It doesn't mean you're in that category up there with the righteous, but most people think if you called yourself that, that's where you are. You're saying you're better than everybody else. But he calls you righteous Gentiles because you have taken the choice to walk with him and follow his word as it came down from Mount Sinai through Moses to the world. And because you're doing that, you're righteous. Now, you're going to make mistakes. You're going to trip up. You're going to fall. Things are going to happen. And you can repent for those. You can say, I'm sorry, I won't do it again. And you do your best not to do it again. It's not like the other religions do. They go and say, I did this, I'm that, and I'm sorry. And then they go out on Monday morning and do the same things again and think they're clean because they come before God on Sunday. The philosophy is unbelievable that's involved in this. It's not the philosophy they teach in schools today. It's not, it's something completely different. And that's why the Tanya is such a good book, because it walks you through all of these levels and you get a greater understanding of these things. Now, I learned it after I threw my switch to return back to my roots and become a Haredi Jew. But I did it because I realized, I'm going to put it this way. I couldn't understand why God wanted me to marry a woman that wasn't Jewish. Now, I was a secular Jew, but it would never entered my mind to marry a woman that wasn't Jewish. It just wouldn't enter my mind. And I ended up married to a non-Jewish woman, and I couldn't figure out why. I really couldn't. It wasn't for love and it wasn't for lust. I just knew I was supposed to marry this woman. And then all of a sudden, something inside of her wakes up and says, wait a minute, I was never a Gentile. I'm Jewish from the get-go. And that happens to people. The neshama wakes up and says, what am I doing in this goy body? I'm not supposed to be here. I have to go back where I'm supposed to be. That's why I tell people, conversion is not an intellectual decision. It can't come from the intellect. If it does, it's wrong. but it clicked in my head when she said she wanted to convert. I knew what she meant. And what I did was first I took her to a Reformed congregation, and she finally said, "Get me away from this church." I said I wanted to convert. And so we went through the conversion process, which takes people 5-6 years sometimes. It's a long, difficult process. Took us about 2 years to get the whole thing done. From the day her file was opened to court till the day she became a Jewess was 9 months exactly. But it came into my head that the reason that we were married and the reason was going on is because God wanted me to come back where I belong. That's what threw the switch for me. Because I've trusted God since the 70s. Being a secular Jew, and I prayed for something and it happened right in front of my eyes. I'm not going to go into the story right now, but my oldest daughter was dying, and I made a promise to God if he would heal her instantly. In other words, when we woke up in the morning, everything was fine. I would just be his the rest of my life. And at that time, we were in a children's ICU in a hospital in Albany, and the doctors had told me there's nothing we can do for your daughter. She'll be dead by morning. My daughter woke me up in the morning wanting to know why she was in the hospital. The doctors had given up on her. So, and I promptly forgot I promised God I'd be his from now on if he did that. But we lived 20 years at least with no more illnesses in the house. I made mucho money. Our life was beautiful. It was like dream world. And looking back, I realized that I made the promise to God, but he wasn't ready to use me yet. But when he came ready to use me, he let me know. How did he let me know? By putting this woman in front of me. And so I've always trusted. Whatever happened in my life since then, I've trusted him. I trust him now with the coronavirus. Okay, yeah, am I afraid of getting it and maybe dying because I'm so old? Yeah, sure, everybody's got that fear. But whatever happens is okay. I'm not going to panic over it because I trust God. And if the body goes, that's fine. I'll see him when we go up to the next level. But I have total trust in him. I don't have any doubts in my mind. It's a good way to be. You don't have to worry about, say, oh, do I have faith or this or that? I just trust. The highest level you can get to, I believe. I don't know. But the Tanya walks you through this. Maybe what we might, there's a book called GPS for the Soul. And it's based on the Tanya. And it's a book that you really should read in a group, like 2 or 3 or 4 of us together. And it walks through all these steps. It gives a much deeper understanding. It's not for everybody. Not everybody even wants to get into that. But if anybody would like to, maybe we can put a little group together that meets once a week or once every 2 weeks and reads it and discusses it and focuses on it. If anybody's interested, I don't know. You guys, it's getting pretty late for you guys over there, isn't it? My goodness. I just looked at the clock. I lose track of time when I start talking like this.
I hang out with Chabad, so it could be an all-night thing for me.
Hey, we do our Farbrengen virtually now.
Yeah.
I keep this by the Zoom room. Chabad, unfortunately or fortunately, they're drinkers. It's l'chaim. If you can hang out with Chabad and you're still walking straight, you're strong. Yeah. You're strong.
Well, actually, I have one of my friends in the shul. When we have a kiddush, he makes hagafen over grape juice for me.
Yeah. That's right.
Yeah, he says the blessing over wine, but he says it on grape juice, and then gives me some of the grape juice. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you can make it over grape juice.
Yeah. Yeah, but everybody else at the table, we're the only two that drink the grape juice. Everybody else drinks wine and mashka and, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is my teacher with addictions.
Very good.
This is his, what's his name?
Tversky's, yeah, Abraham Tversky. He's, of course,
yeah.
he's very good at that. Yes.
This is where I get my information.
Yeah, no, he's very good at that.
He's very good, very good.
So, but we still, in all of this, we just have to understand that not everybody thinks exactly the same way. So we have to be open to move a little bit one way or another to really help. I mean, you've done a great job, I'm sure, with all the people you've helped and that in giving them that information. I have to be a little more flexible than taking a fixed way, because everybody needs their to help to come through the way they need to come through and hear what they need to hear in a way that they can hear it.
I agree that everyone is different.
Yeah.
I agree with that.
So
The
that's
only thing
where my
yeah.
explanations come from.
Okay. Bless you. Totally.
You know, a couple things that Angelica was talking about, you know, how life is kind of like a cup, you know, and she said something about a cup, and I was thinking about, you know, if life is like a cup, but if you just fill it full of Hashem, there's not room for anything else. If you fill it full of whatever else, there's not going to be room for Hashem. So it's kind of a decision. And something else that Angelica said is, when somebody says to themselves, oh, you know, I'm just an alcoholic, you know, that's really Lashon Hara. That's really evil speech.
No, that's true.
About yourself. But I think it's in the way that you say it. When I say it with strength, with oz, you know, oz is the Hebrew word for strength. Because I have 22 years of sobriety. I say it with strength, and I say it with a little bit of pride too. You know, I don't say it in the sense that, oh, I'm a bad person because I am an alcoholic. I'm a bad person because I used to drink alcohol. You know, I don't say it in that way at all, because I do believe that if you say negative things about yourself, negative things are going to return. Absolutely, you're absolutely right about that, Angelica.
It's true. Your tongue. That's why you're not supposed to say anything that would bring on something bad. You don't tell a kid you'll never amount to nothing. You don't say, oh, gee, I hope I don't have an accident. You don't say those things, because you're speaking out things that I can't look at myself without wearing my hat, and I had to take the hat off so I could put my earphones on right. I've been wearing a hat for like 55 years. I mean, even long before I came to Chabad, and I just can't look at myself without the hat on. So there you go, Tony. So anyway, that's why I took the video off right now. I don't look at myself that way. But no, that's true. And you have to, that's what makes a person a good teacher, when they realize that not everybody can accept the same explanation on the same thing in the same way. Mm-hmm. You guys have this wealth of information, and how do you convey it to people? This is a teaching actually in the Talmud, and there's stories about it. Pardon? Oh, I thought somebody said something. All this wealth you have up in your head, and you want to give it to somebody who doesn't have that information yet, you have to funnel this information you have and change it into a way that it will flow into that person on the level that they can understand it. In other words, if you're going to teach somebody, a third grader, you have to teach the words in third grade words and the third grade information. When they're in fifth grade, you can give a little more information. You have all the information, but you can't give it over that way, because all of us have met geeks before, right? What happens when you call the IT guy on the phone? You got a problem with the internet, you know, but you don't know what he's talking about half the time. I don't. So you can't get geeky about stuff. We have to learn how to transmit information in a way that understandable for the other people. And it's important that we understand that. that we feel good about all the information and knowledge we have, but if we give it to somebody else, they may drown in it. It may scare them. So we have to be able to transmit the knowledge in a way that we can give it to them in a way that they can drink up the amount we give them. You know, there was, and I'm sure you've all heard this story before. A student comes to a Torah sage, and he says, "Look, I want you to take me on as a student. I want to learn. I want you to teach me." And the sage gets up and says, "Would you like some tea?" And he said, "Yeah." And he puts the teacup in front of the student, and he starts pouring the tea. And he's looking at the student. He's saying, "Well, I'm going to teach you a lot of things. There are a lot of things you're going to want to understand and everything." And the student all of a sudden says, Sir, the tea is overflowing the cup." And the sage looked at him and said, "That's your first lesson. Come back tomorrow."
Mm-hmm.
And of course, the student came back and couldn't understand. And it took him about 3 days before he understood what the sage was trying to tell him. You can't add anything to a full cup.
Yeah.
The first thing any of us have to do when we're going to go do something and learn something, and to get into the depth of learning we want, it is first we have to empty our cup so we can receive the new things coming in. We have to open ourselves up in that way, pour out what we think we know, and get the knowledge we want. Unfortunately, too many people's pride get in the way. It doesn't allow them to do that. Unfortunately, it might be somebody you know that you talk to every day that is like that. So we have to help them do it. One of the first principles of helping someone do something is first be their friend. Now, how do you be a friend to somebody you just meet? How do you be a friend to someone that, you might have known for 5 years, but you've never been friendly with them? It's like the first thing you do is get them talking about themselves. Let them talk about themselves for a while. It's funny. I'm going to put this back into the secular very much. But I did some psychological studying of how to mind work with other people. And when I was single, I used to apply it to when I would go and meet women in bars and stuff. And I learned about body language and learned that if you walk up to somebody and you start talking to them, you look at their eyes. If their pupils dilate, they're interested in talking to you. If they contract, go away. They're not going to listen to you anyway. So I learned that about the body language. But I've also learned that the way you make a friend is you ask somebody a question about themselves and let them talk. Don't interrupt them. Let them talk as long as they want, even if it's 2 hours. If at the end of the 2 hours you say, "Gee, it was nice talking to you," and walk away, that person's going to say, "Wow, what a friend that is." Because you let them talk about themselves. I was believe it or not, I was in sales most of my life. In some sales, you don't have time to make a friend, so you had to make a friend real quick of someone that was in front of you so they'd sign and buy something from you. And I looked at it like I'm on one side of the Grand Canyon, they're on the other side. And I'm holding out my hands to them and saying, "Jump over here, I'll catch you. Jump over and be with me, I'll catch you." But how could they trust you enough to catch you? I'm not going to jump. You've all seen these things fall off the table backwards. We'll catch you, trust, And so I realized that I have to build a bridge over to that person, take them by the hand and lead them back to where I am. So how do you build that bridge? The way you talk to someone, the way you look at someone, the smiles you give them, the eye contact, which is important. And you get over beside them and say, okay, come on, I want to show you something. And you just walk them slowly back over to where you are. Very slowly, baby steps, baby food. It takes time. You have to be patient to walk them over back to where you are, to get them on your side so they can really learn things. These are all very important things about interacting with people. And you can read about it on the internet and all that kind of stuff if you want to really get into it. I was, because I knew I was a salesperson. I was making my money in sales. So I had to learn how to be a proper salesperson. I don't use that anymore because there's flattery involved with the other person and stuff like that. And I don't try to do that anymore. I just talk the truth. But I'm going to try to look at this. I don't know if I can or not. Whoops, wait a minute. Push the wrong button. No, I don't want to see that. It looks so silly. No, I'm going to do it this way. I spent so many years wearing a cowboy hat. Putting a Chabad hat on was nothing for me.
Right?
Now, everybody has a different way of learning. Why did we get on this subject? Yes, how to communicate with people. Don't use trigger words. You don't use, and you just try to make friends out of them. But always realize there's different ways of seeing what you're presenting. So you have to be open to seeing your way presented a little bit different way. It's almost like semantics with a word. And so what people get into lots of times, especially people, the street corner preachers and the evangelists and the people like that, you can get to a point where they only see things one way and they can't see it anywhere else, and they're afraid to look at it anywhere else. One of the big things is Isaiah 53, that they tell you, oh, the Jews don't say that in their synagogue because it's telling the truth about who is who, which is a lie anyway, but they can't see it anywhere than that. If you ask them questions about the Bible, they always come back with a different way. So when you're teaching somebody and somebody's accepting, sometimes they're seeing it differently than what you're saying, but they're still seeing the same point you're making. So you always have to look at that and make sure that they are complimented, and that all you're interested in is they get to the point that it's the truth. How they get to it, their thinking might be a little bit different than yours, but it's okay. And that keeps, that helps people walk their way. That helps you help people so much when you do that. All right, who's got what else to say? Come on now. If not, I'm going to go grocery shopping, and you guys can go to sleep or wherever you're going to do.
Yeah.
We got another night. I'll be here. I'll be in here at 10 o'clock tomorrow night, Eastern time, and on Wednesday night it'll be 8 o'clock, and then next Sunday we'll start all over again. If you want to come along, we appreciate you guys coming in, and I appreciate it personally. This whole thing, we've been working with Noahites for years, and we both sit down sometimes and nothing's happening. What's going on? Why is things stuck? And we both agree, well, something's going to happen because the guy's going to make it happen. And all of a sudden it's happening. It is a beautiful, wonderful, exciting thing to see. And it makes everybody joyous. So I just, wait a minute. I wanted to put my video on for a second here. See, that doesn't work either. actually get some better microphones. I mean, better earphones. These were just a cheap set. God. Huh. Anyway, guys, I really appreciate, and I could go on for hours and hours. I got to knock it off. I got to go do some things this morning and then get some sleep. But again, each one of you, I appreciate it. I appreciate you sticking in, and I appreciate your questions and your opinions on everything. Because I learned one thing, I don't know anything. And so when I teach people, I learn from them too. So it's just moving forward. Good night, guys. See you tomorrow night.
Good night.
Thank
Shavua
you.
tov.
Shavua tov.